Hey guys, welcome to another review. Today I'm going to be talking about Ship of Theseus, a 2013 film directed by Anand Gandhi. And I'm going to have to say right off the bat, this is a perfect 10 out of 10 for me. I love this film. Truly, truly loved it. The film takes place with three different scenarios. They seem to be unrelated, but at the very end it's really revealed that they actually are all related. The first segment is perfect. The first segment follows a girl who has some sort of cornea issue and she has lost all of her eyesight. She's also a photographer. Now, that in and of itself is interesting. Blind person shooting street photography. Need I say more? I mean, that scenario writes itself. But the way Gandhi goes about doing this is brilliant. I mean, first of all, the film was shot on a DSLR, and you can tell that. As the film continues to age, you can tell that this was shot during this specific time period where DSLRs were kind of first starting to come out and being used at the low budget levels like this. But in some weird way, it makes the film better. It elevates the film because you can tell that the film has this amateurish quality, but yet the actors on screen, the direction, the writing is just top notch. It is top notch, and I love that. But what he did with that first segment that I truly, genuinely loved is he knew what to do with sound design. Sound is so fucking important in any movie. And when you're dealing with a blind character and you can hear everything she's hearing and you can really get that impact of the way a blind person might perceive the world. She can hear a fly being burned and dying on this electrical field. She can hear rickshaws going past. She's in a taxi cab and she can hear people arguing outside the window. She stops the taxi cab so she can take pictures of this. I mean, all of these little moments are great. And there's things that I didn't even know about, where she has this sensor that can tell you, oh, this is red, what she's looking at is red or blue or et cetera, et cetera. And that her camera has this mode where it'll call out, aperture 5.6, shutter speed. So she's literally, she understands photography clearly. She's able to take all these pictures. And they do this thing where they print the pictures out on this material where she can feel it. I mean, I love that. I genuinely loved it. And not just because she was blind and she's a photographer, but just about how real it felt. At no point throughout almost the entire duration of this entire film did I ever feel like I wasn't watching reality. It's a movie. I understand that. You can tell. But there's a lot of techniques that he was using in this film that aid the film's sense of realism. The long take. I mean, in that first segment, there's a scene between her and her boyfriend where they're fighting over whether a picture should be deleted or not. She didn't like the picture. She obviously can't see it. Her boyfriend is not blind and is defending the photo, saying it's a great photo. And she's cutting, vegetables or something, and it was a long take. And, there's line flubs where you can tell that, maybe the script, or I don't know if it was improv or not, but I think it was maybe a little bit of improv, but for the most part it was scripted, where, the line, they kind of stutter, and a normal film, they wouldn't allow that. And so, the inner filmmaker in me was like, oh, there's a mistake there. But I didn't care because I genuinely was just enthralled by their story, by their dynamic, by everything. So even when there were technical hiccups, it still felt real. It still felt genuine. I mean, I feel like I had that argument before with a significant other. Just because what they were arguing about was over dumb shit and non-important things, but sometimes they just blow out of control for no reason. And so, those little moments like that in the first part, I genuinely loved. So the second segment deals with a monk, and he's like an atheist. And what was really interesting about this whole story is, or this section, was the philosophical take of that whole segment, because this is where all of the huge philosophical questions were starting to be presented to the world. Because for those who don't know, Ship of Theseus is a philosophical question where if you have the ship of Theseus, and over time as things degrade and you start to replace the ship piece by piece, it needs a new mast, it needs a new this, it needs a new that. Over time, if everything gets replaced, is that still the ship of Theseus, or is it a new ship? And that's what this whole film deals with. With the blind girl in the beginning, her eyes do get fixed. And now that she has new eyes, is she still the same person? Is she a new person? And then once you get to this monk, it's the same thing. He's a lawyer by day. He's trying to fight against animal testing on like in terms of like shampoo products and things like that, because he's against the cruelty of animals. To the point where he actually gets sick from a liver disease, and he refuses to take the medicine because the pharmaceutical companies that produce the medicine have been known to test their medicines on animals. So he's willing to die. I mean, he goes through a huge fast, and the actor, you can tell he lost at least 20 pounds on screen. And I believed it. It was great. But not only was that great, I mean, when you first get introduced to the guy, you could see he's sleeping on the floor on this little mat with the other monks. He wakes up at the crack of dawn when it's nighttime, rolls his stuff up, and he walks, and he walks, and he walks, and he walks all the way till he gets to the city, where he gets to like monastery or something like that. And then he ends up in a courtroom where he has like this friend character who's kind of helping him fight this case. And it just shows you so much character without any dialogue. Again, I enjoyed it. I love that because it was just real. Because I guarantee you there's people like that in the universe, on this planet, and potentially in India that are just like that, who just wake up at the ass crack of dawn and walk for miles and miles and miles to get to their job. For whatever the reason might be, whether it's finances, whether it's, religious practices, whatever that might be. And that is just inherently interesting to me. There's questions in that second part. Is there a soul? Do you have a soul? And that kind of, gets circled back later on. But there's also just beautiful moments that have nothing to do with the characters. I mean, there's a moment where there's a centipede and there's a shot, it's a macro shot, so you could see the centipede on the floor. And you just hear these footsteps, and you see the footsteps going right by it. And the whole time, I'm at the edge of my seat. Why the fuck should I be? It's a damn insect. But that's the whole point of that scene. That's the whole point of that shot, which is why it's beautiful, because you see the centipede going through the ground. He's going on the ground, and you see these feet just stomping all around it, because it's in a crowded, busy area. And you think the centipede's gonna die, and you feel for the centipede. You don't want the centipede to die. And then you see this newspaper go in, and then the centipede goes on the newspaper, and that's the monk. The monk saves it, he puts it on a leaf, and he goes about his day. Again, another character moment. Beautiful. 2 shots. That's all it was, 2 shots. Centipede on the ground. Footsteps, sound design of all the footsteps, and they're loud, and you can hear them, and it's just crazy. In the same shot, you see the newspaper, you see the centipede go on the newspaper, you see him put the centipede, on the plant. 2 shots. Once you establish that it's him, boom. Huge character development. Love it, love it, love it. Fantastic. And then in the final segment, you'll deal with something that was, at first it was a little off-putting because the first 2 were so strong. It didn't feel the same. It took its time to develop. And once it does develop, however, it becomes almost as strong as the other 2 parts. And it really completes the entire picture, which ironically is how it should all work out. So again, kudos. So the story of the third one turns out to be about a man who went in for his appendix. His appendix ruptured. He went into the hospital. And unbeknownst to this guy, he had his kidney removed. He didn't know, but they took his kidney and they sold it on the black market. And he finds out later because he's like at work or something, and he collapses because he obviously only has 1 kidney now, and that's when they find out that it's gone. And there's really nothing he can do about it because he's just basically he's a poor Indian. He lives in the poorer part of town. I'm not sure where specifically. And it's sad. It's kind of sad. It really is. And the main character of this segment that you follow, he's not the one who lost the kidney, but he also had a kidney transplant. And when he heard of this story, he wanted to get to the bottom of it. He wanted to help this guy out. And there's a whole series of events which I really enjoyed. He wants for him to find this guy, he has to go through this town where you can't even drive a car because the houses are so close together. You can't drive a car through the alleyway. I mean, there's even parts of it where you can't even walk through because the houses are just so tight. So those little moments are funny and just but in a good way, not in I'm making fun of this guy, but in an educational way, because I feel like there has to be parts of India where that's like that. And you don't really see that in other Indian films. You don't see a lot of what you see in this film in other Indian films, which I just enjoy that, because at no point in any of these characters not feel humanistic. And when he basically finds the guy, And there's this little detective work that goes on, and he finds out the guy that has his kidney purchased his kidney, and he's actually in Sweden. So him and another guy get a plane ticket, and they go to Sweden, which was, to be honest, unexpected, because you can tell the budget was low. And they go to Sweden, they find the guy, they confront the guy at his house, all in one take at the house. And that was another long and beautiful scene, because he's just speaking Swedish, and there's another Indian who's translating, so they can't really talk to each other. And it didn't seem like the Swedish guy knew what he was doing. He just knew that you could buy kidneys, but he didn't know that they're necessarily being stolen from people. He breaks down and starts crying. But because the film takes its time, and because it's in one take, you get to really feel like you're in the room with these people. You get to watch them as they transform the beginning of the scene, where they're like lighthearted, to different states throughout the frickin' take. And I love that. I genuinely love that, because it just shows an extreme amount of control. Now, I don't know how it was on set. Interestingly enough, the director of this film released all of the footage of the film, and you can actually go online and watch all of the dailies. For those who don't know what dailies are, basically that's everything you shoot in one day. It's like all the clips. And he released them all online. I actually did this before I started going and doing this review. I didn't watch all the clips, but that is fucking amazing. As a matter of fact, when this movie came out, he released it online for a short period of time, and he even said, if you want to download it, whatever. The only thing is, just crowdfund my next movie, which wasn't Tumbad, but he actually did direct Tumbad. So I enjoyed that last part, because of the reality, but also because it presented these weird questions about, or at least for me, I thought of these questions, because how it all resolves, spoiler, is the guy from Sweden ends up paying the Indian who he stole the kidney from a lot of money. And the main character that we're following in this segment, he wanted the Swedish guy to give the kidney back. And basically the guy who got his kidney stolen was like, I don't want his kidney back. I have this money now. I have all this money. And mind you, he's poor. And he's angry that the other Indian is insisting that he gets his kidney back. And so it made me think, is there anything wrong with selling your own body parts? Should there be anything wrong with that? If I have 2 kidneys and I do want to sell it to someone else, should that be illegal? Now, obviously, that might open the door for a million different things, but that might eliminate black trading, black market stuff, if I can legally sell my organs. Again, this is what I thought. I'm not saying I support that. It's just what I was thinking about it, because what does it say about someone who's willing to buy a kidney from someone? Is that really wrong? That they need something and they're willing? Obviously, it's wrong if you want to kill someone for their organs. That's wrong. But, if there was a system in place where you could buy it. Because when you look at this situation, and that's why I love this third segment, when the guy takes the money and he's like, I don't need the kidney, I have the money. How can you be mad at that guy? He has money now, and he seems to be happy. That money might elevate him to a point where maybe he's been working his ass off day and night, and that's his lucky break. Maybe he won't live as long. I don't know. That's the sacrifice here. And the other guy, he does get to live as long, potentially. So, it's just weird. Basically, what I'm saying is nothing in this film is black and white. There's a lot of gray, and I enjoy that. There's also a quote that I started this whole review off with. All that happened was because you decided to do something about it. Because at the very end of the day, the main character of the third segment was kind of conflicted. He was like, I achieved nothing. By going to Sweden, by doing this, I achieved nothing. And the grandmother who's there was saying, if you didn't do any of this, none of it would have happened. And that's such a strong message. It's because it's a one line, often it's not like a close-up where she says it to the camera or something. She's laying down in bed and she's saying it in a wide shot. But it's just so impactful because it's so true. And not because of this story, but in life in general. If you want to go do something, you just go out and do it. Because if you don't ever go out and do it, it'll never happen. And just by virtue of you going and doing whatever it might be that you want to do, so many things might happen. And again, such a strong message. And as a matter of fact, speaking of the grandma, one of the best scenes in the movie is that main character in that third segment and the grandma, where he's like sitting on his laptop doing business work. The grandma asks, like, can you call a nurse? He goes and gets a nurse, tries to get a nurse. He said the nurses say we're all busy. He comes back in to the room because they're at a hospital, and basically the grandma needs to go to the restroom. And there's a long take where he goes and he gets the bedpan out, and he's like, don't worry, they're not going to be here for 30 minutes. Let's just do it. And, you know, you see him clean it and prep the bedpan. He puts it under her. She pees. And, you know, he takes it out, you know, cleans it. It's just, again, it felt real. Like, I feel like this is what people do with their grandparents, with their parents when they're in the hospital, with other relatives, et cetera, et cetera. You know, this love, this family, the familial aspect of it. But that's not what makes the scene great. What makes the scene great is it continues. This pure act of innocence ends up in them arguing with one another. And it's in a long take because the freaking movie allows things to develop, and I enjoy that. And then, when all is said and done, you find out that the person who was able to give the kidney to the guy in the third act was the same person who gave the eyes to the person in the first act, and then you find out the guy who refused to take the medicine got a new liver thanks to the same person. And all of these people come together because this was the first time, according to this movie, where an individual was able to donate so much of his things, so much of his body parts to other people. And there's like this small little conference where they're all going to meet together, all of these people who took these different body parts and stuff, and they all come together and they want to watch his movie because he was a cave diver. Now, because I took a philosophy class, I was able to pick up on the literary part of this film, especially the ending. If I didn't, this would have went right over my head. So he was a cave dweller because of Plato's cave philosophy, the cave story. And it's ironic because it's what you see at the end is literally his experiment, that thought experiment. You know, you never see the cave diver, but you see his shadow, and you say, is he real? Is he not real? I mean, if you're not familiar with the philosophy of what I'm talking about, please go ahead and check that out. It's the cave theory, and everything just gels so well. And I don't know, I truly loved it. Perfect film for me. Even with all of the little gripes I may have throughout it, I don't care because the film's message, it's strong. Despite the fact that it was shot with the DSLR, it doesn't matter because that adds to the whole picture. The sound design was always good, the dialogue was good, the acting was good. Perfect 10 out of 10, one of the best Indian films ever made. And it bothers me that not as many people actually talk about this movie. Because this film enters not just the best Indian film that I've ever seen. It enters one of the best films I've ever seen, period. Especially dealing with subject matter like this. It's an independent film through and through, so if you're expecting a huge, long, sweeping narrative with extreme conflict and an antagonist and a protagonist, it's not that. It's just human life, and I fucking enjoyed that. So kudos to that. Kudos to everyone who's recommended me this film, and thank you. If you like this review, let me know in the comments. Hit that thumbs up, hit that like, hit that subscribe button. Please stay tuned for more reviews in the future. And let me know what you guys felt about this film. Did you enjoy it? Do you feel the same way? Do you think it was too pretentious? Do you not? I don't know. Either way, let me know in the comments. Go ahead and check out my playlist of all my other solo reviews, and we'll see you on the next one.